Super Teddy, Adventures for Little Ones.
Story: Two fish travel to Australia. In a round, bright fish tank lived two little fish friends, Finny the orange clownfish and Bubbles the blue damselfish. They dreamed of the big waves and corals of a faraway place called Australia, a world full of colors they only knew from whispered stories. Their fins flapped with longing. One day, a kind girl with bright eyes showed them a book with amazing pictures. They saw fish of all shapes and sizes, swimming in incredibly colorful reefs. The girl read about the Great Barrier Reef, and Finny and Bubbles felt a bubbly excitement in their fins. Australia seemed magical. With great care and a big smile, the girl prepared a special container with clean, fresh water for her little friends. She explained they were going to embark on a great adventure. Finny and Bubbles said goodbye to their fish tank with one last cheerful swirl, ready for the journey. The journey began. Inside their secure container, Finny and Bubbles watched the world go by outside a window. Tall trees, colorful houses, and fluffy clouds paraded like a story as they bravely moved towards the unknown. They made a stop. How different everything was outside the water. They saw bright lights, heard soft noises, and felt the fresh air. Although they were in their container, the experience was exciting and new. A small taste of the vast world outside. The journey continued, arriving at a place near a lot of new water. It was a quiet lake where they spent a moment watching frogs jump and dragonflies flutter. A friendly duck greeted them with a soft quack, wishing them good luck on their way. There was a slightly bumpy moment when the vehicle gently swayed. Finny and Bubbles looked at each other and snuggled a little, remembering they were together. Their friendship was like a protective bubble that made them feel safe on the adventure. They could feel it. The air smelled of salt, and the sound of waves grew stronger. They were very, very close to the great ocean. Their fish hearts beat fast with anticipation. The promise of Australia was almost within Finn's reach. Finally, with one last gentle movement, the container tilted. They were released into the crystal blue water. They were in Australia. Dazzling coral reefs and tropical fish greeted Finny and Bubbles in their wonderful new ocean home. They swam and explored with pure joy. They saw vibrant anemones, glided alongside calm turtles, and played hide and seek among corals of 1,000 colors. Finny and Bubbles had found their paradise. A great adventure that began in a small fish tank.
Super Teddy, Adventures for Little Ones. Super Teddy, Adventures for Little Ones.
There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. B-I-N-G-O, 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 and Bingo was his name-o. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. I-I-N-G-O, I-N-G-O, B-I-N-G-O, and Bingo was his name-o. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. N-G-O, N-G-O, and Bingo was his name-o. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. O-G, Bingo was his name. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. Oh, Bingo was his name-o. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. I-I-N-G-O, I-N-G-O, B-I-N-G-O, and Bingo was his name-o. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. N-G-O, N-G-O, and Bingo was his name-o. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. O-G, Bingo was his name. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. Oh, Bingo was his name-o. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. Bingo was his name-o.
Happy kids, peaceful parents, subscribe now. Super Teddy. Super Teddy, adventures for little ones.
The Duck Who Learned to Share. Pepe was a little yellow duck who lived on a farm full of animals. His favorite place in the whole world was a round puddle right next to a big tree. Every day, he would jump in, splash with his little feet, and giggle with joy. "This puddle is just for me. Splash, splash," he would say happily. He liked being there all by himself, without anyone bothering him. One sunny afternoon, while Pepe was splashing around, his friends Bunny Lala and Piglet Tito came running. "Hi, Pepe," they said cheerfully. "Can we play in the puddle with you?" Lala had a flower behind her ear, and Tito brought his favorite ball. They wanted to have fun together in the water. Pepe puffed up his feathers and shook his head. "No, this puddle is just mine. I don't want it to get messy or too splashy," he said. Lala and Tito looked at each other sadly. They lowered their heads and walked away without a word. Pepe went back to splashing, but it didn't feel as fun as before. Pepe stayed in the puddle. He twirled around, made little waves with his wings, but something was missing. It's not as fun without anyone else," he whispered. There were no giggles, no voices, only the sound of water and the wind in the trees. The puddle felt smaller and quieter. The next morning, Pepe ran to the puddle with a big smile. "Time to play!" he shouted. But when he got there, the puddle was dry. The sun had shone so bright that the water had disappeared. Pepe walked around in circles where the puddle used to be. Now it was just dry dirt and leaves. He felt very sad. Pepe wandered across the field, hoping to find another puddle. Then he saw Lala and Tito far away. They had found a small new puddle under a bush, and they were playing happily, splashing and laughing. "Look at this, Lala!" Tito shouted, tossing the ball into the water. Pepe watched them from a distance. Their laughter made him smile, but also feel a little lonely. Pepe slowly walked over to the new puddle without saying a word. He sat on the grass nearby and lowered his head. He thought about how nice it would be to play with his friends. Maybe, "I want to be with them too," he thought. But he was afraid they wouldn't want him around anymore after how he had acted. Lala saw him sitting there and smiled warmly. "Hi, Pepe. Do you want to play with us?" Pepe looked up, surprised. "Really? But I wasn't nice before," he said quietly. "That's okay," said Tito. "There's always time to play together." Pepe felt something warm in his heart. His friends still cared about him. Pepe jumped into the puddle with a big splash. Water flew everywhere, and all three of them started laughing. They played catch with the ball, made waves, and even had a splash contest. The puddle was full of joy, giggles, and fun. Pepe couldn't stop smiling. From that day on, the puddle belonged to everyone. Sometimes more friends came too. The little hen, the sheep, and even a slow turtle. Pepe learned that sharing wasn't just kind. It made playtime so much more fun. And whenever someone new arrived, he would proudly say, "Welcome, this is our puddle."
Super Teddy, Adventures for Little Ones.
A Little Mouse Lost in New York. Pippin was a small and curious little mouse with big round eyes. One day, while exploring near his home in the countryside, he sneaked into a soft and warm box. Without realizing it, the box was loaded onto a noisy train that took him far, far away to a giant city. When the train stopped, Pippin got out of the box and found himself in a huge place, full of hurried people and strange noises. He looked up, seeing towering roofs and bright lights everywhere. He realized he was lost, and his heart beat very fast. Bravely, Pippin ran down a hallway and out onto an even noisier street. There were giant cars, wailing sirens, and a smell of delicious things mixed with unknown odors. He hid under a bench, feeling very small in such a big city. Looking for a quiet place, Pippin ventured into a park full of enormous trees and very busy squirrels. He saw a vendor with a cart full of peanuts and shiny apples. Hunger squeezed his little tummy, but he was too scared to approach. While observing from his hiding place, an old and wise gray pigeon named Alistair landed nearby. Alistair had kind eyes and ruffled feathers. He saw the scared little mouse and approached slowly, cooing softly so as not to frighten him. Alistair asked Pippin what was wrong in a calm voice. Pippin told him about his adventure and how lost he felt. Alistair listened attentively and, knowing a lot about the city, offered to help him find his way back to a more familiar place. Together, Pippin and Alistair began the journey. They had to cross sidewalks full of giant feet that stomped loudly and dodge fast bicycles that whizzed nearby. Pippin felt safer with Alistair flying close by. To avoid the danger of the open street, Alistair guided Pippin towards a small grate in the ground. Pippin, being so tiny, was able to slip through it, finding a less busy and safer passage just below the noisy surface. They emerged near a large green metal gate, similar to one Pippin remembered near his home. His hope grew a little. They could see familiar trees on the other side, a little piece of nature in the big city. As they approached the gate, Pippin saw something that made him squeak with joy. The big paw of a friendly dog he knew well. It was Barnaby, the good guard dog who lived near his original home. Following Barnaby, Pippin found the cozy corner of the park where his worried family was looking for him. There were many happy squeaks and furry hugs. Pippin was back home, tired but happy after his great New York adventure.
Super Teddy, Adventures for Little Ones.
A birthday cake in the jungle. In the sunny jungle, the mischievous little monkey Alim realizes that his best friend, the lazy bear Yo-Yo's, birthday is just around the corner. Alim has a brilliant idea. He will bake him a delicious birthday cake. He has never baked before, but he is determined to surprise Yo-Yo. Wearing his imaginary little chef's hat, Alim sets out in search of the first ingredient, bananas. He nimbly climbs a tree full of yellow and juicy bananas, collecting the ripest ones for Yo-Yo's cake. Alim remembers that some cakes have eggs in them. He searches carefully and finds a nest with some small blue eggs. Perfect. He already has another important ingredient for his creation. To give the cake a sweet touch, Alim knows he needs berries. With a brave jump, he reaches the top of a very tall tree and collects a basket full of delicious red berries. Back in his tree, Alim puts the bananas in a bowl and mashes them. Then, he carefully cracks the eggs and mixes them with the bananas, finally adding the red berries. He mixes enthusiastically until everything is well combined. The mixture smells delicious. Since he doesn't have an oven, Alim uses his ingenuity. He places the mixture on a large flat leaf and then puts it on a hot rock that has been under the sun. He waits impatiently while the cake slowly cooks, filling the jungle with a tempting aroma. The cake is ready, and Alim decorates it with green leaves and wildflowers. It looks very festive. With the cake in his hands, he excitedly runs towards Yo-Yo's hammock, singing a little birthday song. Alim wakes Yo-Yo up with his singing. Yo-Yo is surprised and very happy to see the cake. He tries a piece and exclaims that it is the best cake he has ever tasted. Aleem and Yo-Yo share the delicious cake, celebrating Yo-Yo's birthday, together with much joy.
Super Teddy, Adventures for Little Ones.
Story: The Beauty and the Beast. Once upon a time, in a simple cottage near the forest, lived a young woman named Bella. There was no one more beautiful than her, not because of her dress or her hair, but because of her great heart and her love for books. Bella spent her days reading stories of faraway places and daydreaming under the sun. One day, her dear father, a kind merchant, had to embark on a long journey. Before leaving, he asked his daughters what they wanted as a gift. The older sisters asked for jewels and dresses, but Bella only asked for a rose, the most beautiful he could find. On his way back, Bella's father got lost in a thick forest. A terrible storm broke out, the wind howled, and the snow fell without stopping. He was very tired and scared, not knowing where to go in the darkness. Just as he was losing hope, he saw a warm light in the distance. He followed the light and discovered a giant and mysterious castle, surrounded by a garden that, surprisingly, was not covered in snow. It seemed enchanted. The large doors of the castle opened by themselves. The father entered carefully and found a table set with delicious food and a crackling fireplace, inviting him to warm up. He ate and rested, marveling at the silent magic of the place. The next morning, before leaving, the father remembered his promise to Bella. He saw a garden full of the most beautiful roses he had ever seen. Carefully, he chose the reddest and most perfect rose for his dear daughter. But as he cut the rose, a terrible roar echoed. From among the bushes appeared a huge and terrifying creature, the Beast. He had a face covered in hair and large claws, and he was furious because the father had stolen his prized rose. The Beast said that, for taking the rose, the father must pay with his life. The poor man begged, explaining that it was for his daughter. The Beast, with a sad look in his eyes, made a deal. The father would live if he sent him his daughter. Heartbroken, the father returned home and told Bella everything. Without hesitation, the brave Bella decided to go to the castle to save her father. When she met the Beast, at first she felt fear, but then she saw something beyond his fierce appearance. Bella lived in the castle with the Beast. They spent time together in the great library, reading and chatting. Bella discovered that behind his fearsome appearance, the Beast was kind, intelligent, and very lonely. They became friends. Despite their friendship, Bella missed her father. The Beast, seeing her sadness, gave her a magic mirror that allowed her to see her family and permitted her to visit them, promising to return. Using the mirror, Bella saw that the Beast was very sick and sad without her. She ran back to the castle. Finding the Beast fading, she told him with tears in her eyes, "I love you." Instantly, the Beast transformed into a handsome prince, freed from an ancient spell, and they lived happily ever after.
Super Teddy, Adventures for Little Ones.
There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. B-I-N-G-O, 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 and Bingo was his name-o. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. I-I-N-G-O, I-N-G-O, B-I-N-G-O, and Bingo was his name-o. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. N-G-O, N-G-O, and Bingo was his name-o. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. O-G, Bingo was his name. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name-o. O, Bingo. name, oh. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name, oh. I-I-N-G-O, I-N-G-O, B-I-N-G-O, and Bingo was his name, oh. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name, oh. N-G-O, N-G-O, and Bingo was his name, oh. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name, oh. O-G, Bingo was his name. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name, oh. Oh, Bingo was his name, oh. There was a farmer had a dog, and Bingo was his name, oh. Bingo.
Super Teddy, adventures for little ones.
The Five Little Ducks and the Rainbow Adventure. It was a sunny morning, and 5 little ducks were playing happily by the lake. They sang, splashed, and waddled in a line, full of joy. Suddenly, a beautiful rainbow appeared in the sky. Its colors shimmered so brightly, the ducklings couldn't stop staring. "Let's find where the rainbow ends," said the oldest duckling. Mama Duck smiled and said, "All right, little ones, but be back before sunset." The ducklings waddled off, and soon reached a forest that sparkled with glowing lights. Everything looked magical: shiny trees, twinkling flowers, even glittering stones. Ahead of them was a wobbly rope bridge swaying in the wind. "We can do it together," said the second duckling. One by one, they crossed it carefully. High in a tree, a wise old owl watched them. "To find the rainbow's end, follow the flickering light between the trees," he said gently. The 5 ducklings entered a valley filled with giant floating bubbles. They laughed, bounced, and played inside them. "This feels like a dream," giggled one. After so much walking and playing, the ducklings rested beneath a giant mushroom. They snuggled close, closed their eyes, and took a deep breath. Climbing the last hill, the ducklings saw the rainbow touching the ground. They had made it! A golden chest sparkled at the rainbow's end. A rainbow fairy fluttered out from the colors. "For your bravery and joy," she said, "I gift you the magic to spread happiness wherever you go." The ducklings returned home flying on a rainbow-colored cloud. Mama Duck was waiting with open wings and the biggest smile. Back home, the 5 little ducks sang and danced their favorite song. They had learned that true magic comes from being together.
Super Teddy, adventures for little ones.
Goldilocks and the 3 Bears' House. The sun rose over the forest, painting the treetops gold. Light filtered through the leaves onto the crunchy path. A little girl with curly golden hair walked barefoot. Her sky blue dress fluttered, and she carried a small basket of wildflowers. She was Goldilocks, a curious 6-year-old who had decided to explore further than usual. After a while, she reached a clearing with a wooden cottage. It had a red roof, green windows with flower boxes, and a blue door slightly open. A curtain moved in the breeze. Curious, Goldilocks stepped closer. The place looked empty. Not far away, 3 bears were walking. Papa Bear, big and strong. Mama Bear, gentle and calm. And Little Bear, who happily picked berries. They had left their cozy home to let their breakfast cool. Goldilocks pushed the door and stepped inside. Sunlight filled the room. The smell of cinnamon and honey oatmeal filled the air. On the table were 3 bowls, large, medium, and small. She approached them, drawn by the smell. She tried the big bowl too hot, the medium one too cold, the small bowl just right. She ate it all, licking her lips happily. She went to the living room, where there were 3 chairs. The big one was too hard, the medium one too soft. The small one was just right until it broke under her. She fell to the floor, surprised. Feeling embarrassed, she went upstairs. 3 doors were slightly open. Everything was quiet, and the air smelled of lavender. She walked in slowly. In the first room, the bed was too hard. The second was too soft. In the third, the small bed felt perfect. She curled up and quickly fell asleep. The bears came home. Papa Bear frowned. Someone had tasted his oatmeal. Mama Bear sniffed hers. Little Bear was shocked. His bowl was empty. In the living room, Papa Bear saw someone had used his chair. Mama Bear agreed. Little Bear found his broken. Tears welled in his eyes. They went upstairs quietly. Papa Bear saw his bed had been touched. Mama Bear's sheets were messy. Little Bear ran into his room and cried out someone was in his bed. Goldilocks opened her eyes and saw the three bears. Startled, she sat up and screamed. She jumped out of bed, ran downstairs, dodged the chairs, and rushed out the door into the forest. Her golden curls flew behind her like fire. As she ran, she thought, I shouldn't have gone in without permission or eaten what wasn't mine. She looked up at the sky and decided to go home. She never saw the bears again, but the lessons stayed with her. Back at the house, Papa Bear fixed the door. Mama Bear made fresh oatmeal. Little Bear hugged his teddy and asked if she'd return. Mama Bear smiled and said, maybe, and next time, she'll knock. The forest outside swayed in peace.
Super Teddy, adventures for little ones.
Little Red Riding Hood. In a pastel-colored little house at the edge of an enchanted forest, lived a sweet and cheerful little girl. She always wore a bright red cape that her grandmother had lovingly knitted for her, so everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. She loved playing among the flowers in the garden. One sunny morning, Little Red Riding Hood's mother called to her. Little Red, my dear, your grandmother isn't feeling well. I've prepared a basket with freshly baked cakes and a jar of golden honey. Her mother handed her a woven basket, full of delicious things and wrapped in a checkered cloth. Take this basket to Grandma's house, her mother said with a soft smile. It's on the other side of the forest. Be careful on your way. Little Red Riding Hood carefully took the basket, feeling the warmth of the cakes. She put on her red cape and, giving her mother a kiss goodbye, began her adventure into the forest, jumping with joy. The forest was a wonderful place, full of tall trees with whispering leaves and bright-colored flowers. Little Red stopped to admire a blue butterfly fluttering near a ray of sunshine. While picking some wildflowers for her grandmother, a big wolf suddenly appeared. He didn't seem like a fierce wolf, but rather one with a slightly sly smile. "Hello, little one," the wolf said in a sweet voice. Little Red Riding Hood, who had never seen a wolf so closely, wasn't scared. "Hello, Mr. Wolf," she responded with her sweet voice. The wolf asked where she was going in such a hurry with that delicious-looking basket. "I'm going to my grandmother's house," Little Red explained. "She's a little sick, and I'm bringing her these cakes and honey." The wolf listened carefully, his eyes glinting with a mischievous shine. The wolf, thinking of an idea, suggested to Little Red Riding Hood, "Why don't you pick more flowers? That way your grandmother will be doubly happy." He pointed to a path full of beautiful flowers. Little Red thought it was a good idea. She thanked the wolf and veered off the main path to go a bit deeper into the forest, searching for the most beautiful and bright flowers for her dear grandmother. While Little Red picked flowers leisurely, the wolf took the direct route to the grandmother's house. He ran as fast as his paws would carry him, his sly smile growing bigger with each stride. He reached the grandmother's cozy little house, which was surrounded by a small garden. The wolf knocked gently on the door, imitating Little Red's voice as best he could. The grandmother, who was in bed, thought it was her granddaughter. "Come in, dear. The door is open," she said in her sweet, weak voice. The wolf entered and, well, you know what happened. He put on the grandmother's nightgown and cap. Soon after, Little Red arrived at her grandmother's house, carrying her basket and a beautiful bouquet of flowers. She saw the door slightly open and entered carefully, noticing it was very quiet inside. Little Red approached the bed where the wolf was disguised. Though something seemed off, she asked, "Grandmother, what big eyes you have." And this is where the exciting part begins.
But for now, our little friend has arrived safe and sound with her gifts.
Super Teddy, Adventures for Little Ones.
Once upon a time, at the edge of a magical whispering forest, lived a little white bunny named Luna. She was soft as a cloud with big, shiny blue eyes, long pink ears, and a tiny yellow flower tucked gently behind one ear. Each morning, Luna woke to the sweet song of birds and the scent of fresh flowers floating through the air. She would stretch, smile, and hop out to greet the day. Oh, how she loved her forest. Luna wasn't alone. She had 3 wonderful friends. There was Leela, the clever little squirrel with a fluffy red tail and a green scarf that fluttered when she ran. Paco was a chubby raccoon with a silly grin and a striped shirt. And Tito, the wise old owl, always carried a little book and wore round glasses on his beak. Together they played among the trees, hiding behind tall ferns, chasing butterflies and laughing under the golden sun. But one day, something changed. Luna stopped in her tracks. Her nose twitched. The air didn't smell like flowers anymore. And the birds were quiet. She looked around and gasped. Wrappers, bottles, and paper were scattered across the forest floor. The flowers were drooping, and even the butterflies seemed too sad to dance. Who could do this? Luna whispered. She hopped softly through the trees, and then she saw them. Some children had visited the forest. They had played and laughed and eaten their snacks, but they hadn't picked up their trash. They didn't mean to hurt the forest, but they didn't know they had. Luna's little heart ached. That night, under the moon's soft glow, Luna called a meeting. She and her friends sat in a quiet circle beneath the wise old tree. Tito ruffled his feathers. Paco looked serious. Lila tucked her tail close. Our forest is sick, said Luna. We have to help it. Tito nodded. We may be small, he said gently, but even small friends can make a big change. So the very next day, they got to work. Luna picked up trash with her tiny paws. Paco waddled around with a bag made of leaves. Lila planted new flowers in the soft dirt. And Tito flew overhead, telling them where the forest needed the most care. Together they smiled and cleaned and dreamed of a brighter place. When their work was done, they painted signs with bright colours and loving words. Please don't litter. Care for the trees. Love our forest. They added hearts and smiley faces and hung the signs high. Now, Luna whispered, let's hope they see. And soon, they did. The children returned. They saw the signs and stopped. A little girl read one out loud. I think we hurt the forest, she said quietly. So they began to clean. One by one, they picked up trash, watered flowers, and waved to the animals. Luna and her friends peeked from the bushes, hearts full of hope. Days passed, and the forest changed. The air smelled sweet again. The birds sang louder than ever. The flowers stood tall, and the butterflies twirled in the sun. Luna sat in a patch of soft grass, watching the children and animals play side by side. Her eyes sparkled, and from that day on, no one ever forgot the magic of the forest. They knew it was a special place, a place to protect, a place to love. And Luna, the little bunny with the yellow flower, knew that even the smallest paws could make the biggest difference. The forest was happy again, and so was she.
Hi, little friends. Thanks for joining our adventure. Each day is a sweet chance to be amazing, like and share the fun. See you soon with surprises. Remember, you're awesome. Your friend, Super Teddy.